Howdy, Beflowbart, and welcome back. And quick recap of what we've got so far in this series. And I'll go ahead and hit the play button. We'll take a look at where we've gotten in the last couple of videos. Again, this is based off of my simple Steam multiplayer template that is available to purchase. And also, with that, you can join the Patreon, and within different levels, you get different aspects of what you can do and get from our Discord. Alright, so in this, what we did is we changed our background. We, as with the template, we'll show your Steam username and avatar. We added background music, and we added the logo for TechnoAxe, which is where we got the music from. Okay, going into the game, we have added the player HUD, which includes the Steam username and avatar, and a simple HUD or character information panel in the bottom right hand corner, and it's going to show how much cash we have in our pocket. It'll show what our hunger is with the green bar, thirst for the blue bar, and red is our player health. Now these are actually synced with our player, although there's nothing in here that can cause us harm, and we don't lose any hunger or thirst just yet, and we don't have anything to pick up to give us any more money. But we also have an account balance, so when we add the ATM later, you'll be able to walk over to an ATM and be able to make a deposit. Another thing that we did was we made a modification to the escape menu and added a character selection. You can change from white, red, or blue, and these are just simple. And if you want to, you can just close that back up, toggling it back and forth. Hit resume game, and you continue playing from where you were with a quick change of your character's color. Nice and easy. Alright, so what I want to do on this one is I'm going to head back to the main menu. And as you'll notice, there is not a whole lot that was included with this to keep the download size as small as possible to get you going. It was just meant to be a template to get you started with creating your own game. So one thing that I would like to add in here so that we can grab some items from it is, the next thing we're going to do is click Add New. Scroll up to Add Feature or Content Pack. Now, this is something you can do for later on. Say you've got your third-person template for running around and doing your thing. You can add in a first-person template and create a first-person shooter that way, or vehicles, advanced vehicles, virtual reality. You can add those in as you need to, or even a rolling game. But for right now, all we really want for this is the starter content. So I select starter content, add to project, give it a couple seconds. It will create the folder and add the starter content to the project. There we go. Then we just hit the X up here to get rid of that. And now what that's going to do is give us like the basic geometries for walls and so forth. But it's also going to give us some audio and audio cues. I'm not so much worried about the maps that came with it. And the materials, we will be using the materials. And we'll learn how to make our own along the way. But you also get some props like door frames, doors, windows, window glass, some lighting, things like that. All your textures and your basic shapes. These will come in handy if you're just trying to slap together something quickly for a nice little map to play on. Now that we've got that in here, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and head over to the lobby map so we can load that in. You see, all we have in here is our basic lighting and 4 spawn points. And the lighting itself, let's close that. Look at our lighting. Our light source is stationary for right now so that we can keep from having to do our lighting builds as frequently or being nagged by the thing that we could actually turn off. We're going to change our lighting over to totally dynamic, and then come over to world settings, and I'm going to start typing in FOR, but then it's going to show up right here. Force no pre-computed lighting. Now, essentially what this is going to do is allow us to keep the existing lighting the way it is, and when we're ready, we can turn that back off and be able to do our full lighting build and so forth. So, next thing we want to do is, well, we can either keep this little box area, and as you see, there's nothing else in this world whatsoever. And we can just add some things in here to do things to jump over, jump on, climb on, what have you. Or we could actually go in and create a whole new world. Not going to do that just yet, but I would like to go through and I've showed this in other videos, but creating things like a sound cue and creating some ambience. Because right now, and I'll go into standard selected viewport. Of course, our Steam stuff is not going to work in the viewport. It's really quiet. There's nothing. There's no noise. It's, yeah. So we're going to hit save all. Save the settings we did for our lighting. We're going to come over here and look at our starter content and audio. Now in these, you've got different ones like collapse, explosion, fire, and these are all kind of come in handy later on as well. But you also have a starter background cue. You have your starter music, birds. So you can have the sound of birds chirping in the background. Starter wind. You've also got some music. You can add that as well if you wanted to. But what we're interested in right now is the starter background cue. I'm going to double click on this one and open it up. And what we can see in here is there's 3 different sounds that are in this with modulators that are going to change the attribute to the pitch or even the volume levels. And you've got your main mixer mode, which is going to mix everything together and then go directly to your output. So we're not really going to modify this one as of just yet. We'll leave this in the way it is. And we didn't do anything to it, so we're just going to leave it the way it is. We know it's called starter background cue. Now, just like we did with the music in the main menu, we're going to come over here and select blueprints by the arrow, drop down to open level blueprint. Now, on event, begin play, we'll take this node and we will, for now, just do play sound at location. And the sound that we wanted, we can do this either of 2 ways. We can undock this or leave it docked, it doesn't really matter. Come back over, we want to make sure that we have this selected and highlighted in yellow. Come back into our level here and we want to click this arrow. And it's going to insert that starter background cue. Now we don't have to worry about changing anything in the modifiers here because the mixers are going to take care of that for us. However, one thing we can look at is the duration length is set to 10,000 seconds. That's a long time. So if we wanted to, we could come in and add a delay. I don't think many people are going to stay in this map long enough to worry about 10,000 seconds. But what we want to do is go ahead and do not 10,000, but 10,001. So that, one extra 0 in there. So you're 10,001 seconds after this starts. It ends, and then we can come back from the end of it and restart it again. So we'll always have a constant running loop in the background of some ambient sounds. So I'm going to click compile and save. Let's go in. And I don't know if you can hear it over this, but you actually have the little background sounds going on, and it feels a bit more like you're somewhere instead of just in a little box running around like a rat in a cage here. So it makes it a little bit more livable. So what else can you do with these? Well, if you have an explosion that you want to trigger, you get 2 different explosion sounds. Kind of sound like gunshots to me, but if you want to choose them from that, you can go into the queue here and you can use a random node to actually cycle between the 2. So when you play the queue, it's purely random. It'll randomly pick between the 2 or however many sounds you want to add into it. I've been known to add as many as 12 different sounds into one for an ambient thing, to where you're walking down a trail or whatever. You walk through this little sound cue or a box collision that's invisible, just sitting in the middle of the trail. As soon as you trigger it, it'll play a spooky sound in the background. So those are some of the things you can do with those. And just to create one, say if you wanted to do the explosion cue, that's fine. We'll leave that one selected. We're going to have to come back and select it again. But we know that if we want to put this in the map somewhere, then we want to create this as a map asset. So I'm going to come over. I'm going to create a new folder called Map Assets, and then go into the folder. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a blueprint class of the actor type, and we're going to call this, well, we'll start off with calling it something, and then we're going to actually create a pain trigger. Now, what we're going to end up doing with this is make this so that you can verify that your health is working on your actual player HUD. So we're going to go into this, and the first thing we want to do is we want to add in a box collision. Okay, and then with that box collision, we want to go ahead and raise it up. I think 30 is the norm here. It puts it at ground level. We'll come back and adjust that here shortly. Compile and save, and then we're going to go to the event graph, and we're going to delete everything inside here, just because. And with the box selected, you don't really necessarily have to have it selected, but if you want to click on it up there, and on component begin overlap, and click that and let it create this box for us right here. Now, whenever we overlap this, we want to make sure that it's a character or a player overlapping it. So from other actor, we want to get player underscore base by cast2 player underscore base, so that we know that it has to be a player walking over this. And from that, we want to play sound at location. Now, in general, we're just going to let it play sound at location. This is a small map. We're not worried about it. We're not even really worried about attenuation. But we could create some attenuation settings so that it only plays within a certain radius of your location. And that's something we'll come back and do later whenever we actually are setting up sounds in a multiplayer environment, so that we know whenever somebody walks over this sound, it's going to actually only be audible within a certain circle and in a certain distance only. Anybody that's not within range of it is just not going to hear it. So we're going to come back to our lobby map so we can get access to our files here. Go back to audio, and we want explosion cue selected. Come back in here and hit the arrow, and now we have explosion cue. Okay, now we're going to leave it like that for right now, and we're going to go ahead and come back to our map assets. We know we're going to spawn over here, so well, we're not really going to see where this is to run over it. So just for argument's sake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete it back off of the map, go back into it, and we know that box collision is just way too small. So we want to come up here, and I'm going to increase this to 5 by 5, and then I'm going to raise it up just a little bit more again. So now it's a little bit bigger. We have no way of knowing exactly where this is, which is good if you want to place an item like this in the middle of a trail or something of that nature. But so that we know that it's going to work, we want to have a location for it. And what I'm going to do is right over here, I am going to come over to geometry. I'm going to get a box geometry. Nice, beautiful, pretty, lovely. Zero it out on the map. And no, we don't want that. We want to bring it back up so it's visible on top. call it 250. Yeah, it's a little off the ground. 230 was putting it right there at ground level, but we're going to change the dimensions of it. Now, when you're working with a box geometry, you don't really want to use your normal transform because that's going to stretch out your textures once you apply them to it. So if you look over here, you've got Y is pointed off in this direction with the green arrow. So if we want to change the dimensions of Y, we want to change that to 500. And we have the X, which is going to be going this way. We're going to go ahead and change X to 500. And that's a little bit tall, so let's actually change the Z, which is the height, to 50. And we'll drag this down so that it's on the ground, like so. Now, with that, it's nice up against the wall. Looks lovely, doesn't it? Now, each of these little squares, the light and dark colored squares, are going to be 100 by 100 in size. So if you're trying to build something with any kind of precision, you know that if you want to make it in increments of 100, you can just follow the scale of that and adjust it here. Now, if you've clicked away and you click back on it, you're only going to get access to the individual faces this way. So if you come up and with everything collapsed, you know that it's right here. So I can click on it and now I have full access to edit those values again. Now the brush type is additive. And just as a quick example, if we were to bring in another box, just for the giggles of it, and instead choose subtractive, becomes invisible, but it also will remove portions of that box. So we'll leave this in place, and we're going to go ahead and zero out the Y. Why? Because I feel like it. And we'll just go ahead and move it back a little bit so it fits within the constraints of that. And what the heck, we're going to change the Y value to 300. There we go. So now we know that we have a 200 by 300 hole in our actual geometry that we placed here. And let's go ahead and click on the face of this one, and we're going to assign a texture to it. You can drag down this way, scroll through, see if there's one that just gets your interest. For right now, I'm just going to give it the chrome texture. And on the side, we're going to go ahead and give it a brick texture, just because we've got nothing else better to do with it. I know that if I type in letters new, N-E-W, it's going to isolate down to anything with those letters in it. And I know that the bricks that I want are the brick clay new. Now you're going to have to apply this texture to every single solitary face there is that is exposed. So when you see them and they're exposed like that, they're not going to have anything on it unless you physically add them to it, which is not a big deal. But in the effort of making this look, whatever, halfway decent. The other option would have been to go back over to find the texture or the material in here, and just as soon as you find the face, click on it, click the arrow, and it'll just keep cycling through that way. But for now, this is good enough. And we have our pane trigger now. And let's go ahead and add our pane trigger back into what we've got. And if we wanted to be really cool, then we could actually come back into our pane trigger. We know that we set our collision box to 5 by 5 by 5. If we left it at 1 by 1 by 1, that's 100 by 100 by 100. And, well, that's not really going to cover it. So let's go with 2 by 5. Now to make this easier for us to see what we're doing, I'm actually going to bring the window down and make it a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. So let's do 2x. Not quite going to fill it all the way. We're just going to fill this hole with something to cause damage to us. So let's try with 3. And I think that's going to work for us. It's not exact measurements across everything, but this will be good enough to get the the general idea. And we'll try 5 as well. It's going to be 2 months, so 4.5. Yes, this is very petty, but the more time you spend on little details, the better off your maps are going to be, even though we're not really making this to be a wonderful map. So we're done doing all that, so we'll go ahead and we'll dock this back up to the top. We're going to compile and save. Now, all it's going to do when we walk over it for now is make a sound. So we hit play. Now, if you have stereo enabled on your speakers, you may notice that the sound is actually emanating from right here. Not very realistic whenever you can isolate your left, right, and if you've got surround sound, you might be able to tell that it's actually playing the sound from the 000 location, because we didn't tell it to play it where it was. If we wanted to actually assign that, then we could come from this and get actor location and move this over a little bit and actually get the location of where we're physically standing to physically trigger this, and it'll play at the location of there, in theory. Of course, I've been known to be wrong at times. So now it's playing the sound right there where we are, instead of playing it over here at the 000 location. Now, if we want to add a little bit of functionality in, besides just playing a sound, which that's kind of cool, but we want to add some functionality. We want to see that our heads-up display is actually working. Now, the other thing we can do here is from Cast 2 Player Base, we want to get our health, and then we want to also hold down the alternate key, drag off from, no, dum-dum. No, we'll go ahead and just drag off from here, and we want to set health. So when we run over this, this is going to deduct some health from us. How much do we want to get rid of? Well, let's go ahead and health, or float minus float, and we want to reduce our health by 10 every time we walk over that trigger. So, now another thing that we really need to look at is, and we can put it in here, but later on we want to go ahead and put it in the player. We're taking away 10 from our health. Well, we only have 100. What happens if we run over this thing 11 times? We're technically dead. So, if you just jump right to taking 10 off your health every single solitary time, yeah, it's going to be a little bit on the interesting side. It's going to defeat the purpose of having health and death. So what you want to do is come off with that and make a branch. And we want to, again, get health. And from there, we drag off from that health, float, and what we're going to ask is the player's health less than or equal to 0? If it is at 0 or less than 0, then we want the player to be dead. So I'm going to quickly compile this, and you broke yourself there. Alright, so we're going to jump back over to our character in the characters folder, player, blueprints, player underscore base. Now we have in our player stats, we have our health, hunger, thirst, cash on hand, bank balance. We're going to need one more variable, and that variable is going to be called is dead, and We're going to make it editable and expose. And for now, we're going to go ahead and set it in player stats, and we're going to go ahead and let it be replicated. And we're going to save that and compile and save. Now back in our pain trigger, we could have also set up the isDead to physically say, okay, you know, with these conditions, is it going to cause you to be dead? So we're not worried about that just yet. So now we're saying, is your health less than or equal to 0? And if it's true, we want to cast from here, set is dead. So we're going to put that in off of the true, and let's go ahead and we're going to move you guys a little bit more just to get you out of the way for now. Set is dead to be true. But if it is not, then we want to begin killing our player. So from the false node, we want to go directly into, well, no, we're not dead, so we're going to go ahead and remove 10 from our health. All right. So every time we walk over this, it's going to check our health, and if we're able to take damage, then it's going to take our damage away. So we're going to go ahead and compile and save. We're going to do a save all because we made changes to the player and to the map. And now we're going to play. You see, it took health off. Our health bar went down. Every time we walk over it, it's going to take 10 off of our health. Now it's not going to let us anymore because we've already taken all of our health away. We're technically dead at this point, so we don't have anything to happen when we actually die. So that we'll look into it at another time. We just wanted to go ahead and make sure that we could kill ourselves by walking over this cube. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but we don't want to keep being dead all the time. So inside player base, I'm going to come over here. We have on our event begin play. We're going to create one off of event tick. Event tick. So this is something that's going to be constantly running and constantly checking things. And we're going to end up using a lot of stuff off of event tick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start off with a sequence node in place so that as soon as we go to event tick, we can just branch off and do bunches of different things. The first one we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to have a health regeneration system. So after we've walked over that pain trigger, it's going to cause us damage, but if we walk away and don't get damaged for a little bit, our health is going to automatically regenerate. I'm going to go ahead and start off with a delay. Now, we're going to end up packaging this into a function here in just a minute, but functions don't like the delay node. For testing purposes, we're going to set this to 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds, we're going to control left click, drag in health. So we're going to get our health. We're going to do a branch. And again, we're going to check to see if our health is less than 100. So what we want to do is check is greater than or equal to 100. And if so, if it's greater than, which this is something that we need to have a check for anyway, but we're going to leave it at equals or on that. So if, and actually, no, let's go ahead and redo that one. We want to verify or see whether or not if our health is greater than 100. If it is greater than 100, then we want to alternate left click and drag off from here. We want to set health to 100. So no matter what, every 5 seconds whenever it does its check, it's going to verify that our health is not above what our maximum health level should be. So that's good to go. Now, if it is not greater than 100, then from there, and actually we can delete that delay. We're going to go ahead and, no, actually we need to leave that delay in, because we can't put that inside the function. We want to store the rest of this inside the function. So we're going to run this check, and if we're not greater than 100, we're going to get our health, which is a control left click, and then we're going to float plus float, we're going to add 5. So with our delay of 5 seconds, if we have less than 100, then it's going to add 5 back to us. So we need to get another one of these. So we can alternate left click, drag, and we want to set our health now to health plus 5. So now, if you're following what we're doing here, we're going to check. We're going to wait 5 seconds. We're going to ask, is our health greater than 100? If it is, then set our health to 100. Okay? But if it asks, is our health greater than 100? No, it's not greater than 100. Then we need to add 5 health. And then it's going to be fine from there. It'll just, the next 5 seconds, whenever it checks, it will keep adjusting. So let's verify that that actually does work. And we'll come over here to our pain sensor. Okay, and we'll wait. And there we go. Our health is back to maximum. Let's run over this a couple times. And let's just go ahead and get wrecked. So we've created a way for us to test our damage. And now we see that if we've been damaged, we can just sit here and wait, and our health will go back up to full again. That's actually not a bad rate. You can do things like, well, create a condition that if your hunger and thirst is above 80 or 90 or whatever, then your health will automatically regenerate. And then when you're setting up your hunger and thirst, you set it to where, like, say every 2 minutes or every 30 seconds, your hunger goes down by 5 or 1 or whatever. You play with your scale the way you want to. Then you decrease your hunger and your thirst down to where when they get below 0, it resets them at 0 and then starts taking away health damage. And that way you can actually die from hunger and starvation. And we'll add that in later when we actually start getting ready to add in ways of regenerating our hunger and our thirst. Alright, so that is that. We have a way to damage ourselves, and we have a way to heal ourselves naturally over time, without the need for a first aid kit or anything of that nature just yet. Alright, well, I think that'll do it for this video. I just wanted to be able to show the basics of adding in health. And like I said, we want to make this into a function. We cannot wrap a delay inside the function, so we're going to move that over to there. We're going to select everything here, with this little bit of stuff selected right now, we're going to right click on any of it, and we're going to collapse to function, and we're going to call this Health Regen. Okay. Now with that, we can actually slide it over to here, and we've just collapsed all that down into one single node. And again, we can't put a delay inside the function, so this is what we're going to have just for our health regen. All right, so we got that accomplished. And if there's any request on features, then let me know. But keep in mind that I want to do these in a kind of a progression, so that we're actually not just building a full game all at one time. Add a gun. There's a lot involved in just adding a gun, or adding I want to shoot things. Okay, those are just kind of vague general statements, and once you see what it takes to actually add a single gun into the game, create the animations to support that, and then being able to make it fire and the projectile system, there's a lot involved in just adding a gun into the game. We can do it. However, that's going to be something for more than one video, because it's going to take a little bit of time to get the animations. I've got a good way of getting those animations that won't cost you anything, and it'll be very little headache. But again, that's going to be something for a couple videos. So if you do have suggestions, please let me know on the Discord page. I'll respond to Discord a lot faster than I will on YouTube. So post your questions there, and I will get them answered. And if you're a member of my Patreon system, let me know. The Platinum Patreons, at any time you want the current build versions of what this tutorial series is doing, you can request that. I will package it, I will post it, and I will put the link up in the Platinum only Discord channel. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video, and hope you enjoyed this so far.